Hello my darlings, it's Zui here, and today I'm delivering another Genshin Impact story. I hope you enjoyed just as much as I enjoyed writing it. But before we go right into it, I would like to remind you to watch the video until the end, like or dislike it, and comment something down below. This helps me to get further into YouTube algorithm, and maybe then this video gets recommended to more people. So thank you in advance for doing that, and let's get right into the show. It was a wonderful spring evening. The sun had been plentiful, almost harsh even, which despite making people break out in a sweat, the cool spring breeze that had been present was refreshing enough for everyone to keep going. It was almost as if the wind and the heat were at war with each other. And for once, Zhongli hoped that the drunken bard would win. It had been a troublesome day for the consultant of the funeral parlor. His boss, Hu Tao, had been in a special mood today, and it had him required very special care to not make her ruin her own business. But after the former Archon managed to lock Hu Tao in a wardrobe using one of his pillars, he could finally catch a break. Hu Tao, the giddy person she was snickering behind the closed door. But the man had been glad that she wasn't upset. She then started to unmelodically sing. At a leisurely pace he walked through the gates of Liwa. He knew of a place that, to his knowledge, no one has found so far. Hidden in an alcove close to the city was a hot spring. It had revealed itself to him after he had fallen off a nearby cliff. Embarrassing circumstances of the discovery aside, the place gave him a feeling of utmost tranquility. It was the perfect temperature, but also a rare algae in the water gave off a mild bioluminescent glow, giving the liquid a beautiful cyan color. To his knowledge, he was the only one to ever witness this place, so he was surprised when upon entering the alcove, he saw someone else taking a bath. His eyes widened, and he ducked behind a large moss-covered rock, occasionally turning to catch a glimpse of this nymph. She looked like... His heart beat faster as his eyes filled with tears. That such a sight unfolded before him was hurting his soul. The nude woman that was washing her body in the pale light of the algae. His lips quivered in pain. Zhongli placed a hand on his face in agony, his breath coming out in shallow hitches, before risking another look. The gestalt before him, her perfect, slender body was covered with scars and burn wounds. This indicated that she wasn't a god. Prying his attention away from her, he looked towards her clothes. Commoner's clothes. A bow and a blade. He tilted his head to see it better. Yes, there were also pelts. Interesting. His heart jumped suddenly, feeling like he caught her attention. Zhongli looked back at the woman. No, she was still cleaning herself. He narrowed his eyes. She was covered in blood, yet the algae's glow seemed to swallow it whole. How often had this woman been here without him knowing? Coincidence, or had she just discovered this place? He needed to know. You were a hunter. Well, more a poacher. You sold rare pelts to the fatui and the more common ones to anyone interested in them. Today had been a harsh day. After having chased a white fox for miles, you were a sweat and dirt-covered mess. While the fox itself was small, you had cut it wrong and were now covered in blood. Thankfully, you knew of this secluded place to rinse yourself of today's crime. Quietly you had undressed and waded into the water. First you had gone to one of the pool's corners, and simply sat down. Every muscle inside you had been aching. And while the pool's heat was seeping into you, it wasn't until you stood up to wash yourself more thoroughly that you noticed the intruder. You weren't scared, and simply opted to clean your scarred frame that told stories of numerous lost battles. The unwanted invader kept watching, probably hoping that you haven't noticed him yet, which made you smile internally. You weren't used to having an audience, and usually just avoided people. Part of you hoped they enjoyed the show, but when you heard the soft pitter-patter of naked skin entering quiet waters, you turned towards him. The intruder. A man. Naked. Just like you. His fine clothes discarded near the entrance. He looked like he was in a trance or really desperate. But the way he came closer, slow, methodically, no aggression. You needed to do a dance like this before. But this was different. You knew, of course, what would come next. But when you reached your side, his hands didn't forcefully grab onto you or force you into a compromising position. No. His hands gently laid on your hips, breathing shallow, like he was trying not to panic. You smiled, innocently. Was this his first time? Trying to avoid any potential anger from him towards you, you forced your hand to his face. Cupping his chin, you slowly moved your thumb across his lower lip. The man's heart stopped for a moment. Heat was filling his entire being. His hands moved around your hips, gently grabbing onto your lower back to push you closer into him. Your mind jumped. It didn't feel like the ruffians that usually courted you. This was soft. Slowly you blinked as you were pushed against his perfectly toned chest. His skin was soft and warm, like a comforting blanket that wrapped itself around you. You looked up at him. While he wasn't crying, you could see that his eyes were filled with tears. That's when he nudged you forward towards the spring's edge. He made you lie down in the alcove's grass as he pinned you down with your legs spread. His face now mere inches from yours, breathing slowly in anticipation. With one hand you cupped his cheek, and he leaned into your touch. Both your hearts were beating with excitement and pain as he came closer. his lips fleetingly touching yours, like the gentle caress of a ghost, leaving behind only the phantom of a sensation. Was he afraid? You smiled and placed your hands on the back of his head, intertwining your fingers with his long hair. Slowly you swallowed your spittle while pushing his face into yours. His lips were soft like flour, and they tasted strange, familiar, nostalgic even. And you wanted more. You needed him and only him. Him. Slowly you allowed his tongue passage into your mouth. It was long, agile and strong. What was this man? He couldn't be human. Maybe you were lying with an adeptus. But how could a peasant like you be worth such attention and honor? Your instincts were awoken. This tender moment lasted until the moon shined through the alcove's opening. Loose dirt once again covered your entire back, your knees and your hands, and your chest. He hadn't been rough until he had pulled your hair, making you yelp in pleasure and pain. He helped you back into the warm water of the hot spring. But he hadn't let go of you. His head was sunken into the back of your neck, and your little heart was still racing as you sat in his lap. Minutes passed in which he was holding you, when your eyes suddenly lit up. Why? Was the only question on your mind. Why were you calling me Guizong? It was weird being called something that wasn't degrading, but even more weird to be called by a name that wasn't yours. Is she your wife? Is she your lover? Is she your lover? A friend, he said in a deep voice. You blushed and fidgeted. Clearly they were more than friends. Then, why are you not with her? She died. He answered with sadness in his voice. Oh. You rubbed your hand over his submerged thigh in an attempt to comfort him. You look like her. His voice was trembling as he fought with his emotions. So, when you saw me, you could no longer contain yourself? I'm sorry I'm not her. His arms suddenly wrapped around your torso. I don't care. He spoke. You smiled painfully. Sure, you said, placing one hand on his, giving comfort and warmth. You sighed in relief when he didn't retreat. There you sat, naked, exposed, and together for a while. It just occurred to me, he said. We haven't even exchanged names. You chuckled quietly and told him your name. He sighed contently. I see. My name is Zhongli. I'm a consultant of the Wangshen funeral parlor. A burning question still remained in your mind. You had to know, but Would he tell you the truth? Are you an Adeptus? For a moment, Zhongli's muscles tensed, and you could feel it. But there may not be an issue with him stretching the truth just a little, was there? I am an Adepticeye beast, yes. Your eyes widened. You were humbled, honored, to let a being of such power into your temple. Instinctively you rubbed over your scarred stomach. Tears filled your eyes, and thoughts of a future that may never happen flooded your mind. You smiled as your tears fell into the water. This had to be a dream. But if you could remain in it for just a little while longer, you would not mind at all. You felt that you were dozing off, when suddenly the comforting weight on your shoulders left, and you heard the loud splashing of him leaving. Immediately missing it, you got on all fours and reaching out for him. No, please. He looked back and smiled. Eventually, even the most beautiful glaze lily will wither, and I don't want to overstay my welcome. To him, the images of your dreams still in your mind. Please, don't leave me, you cried. Zhongli's heart stung. Zhongli's heart stung. He wrestled with himself. Please, don't stay with me. I beg you. Something warm and soft pressed on your forehead, and your eyes widened at the familiar touch of his lips. He had kneeled down before you and taken one of your hands in his, smiling a warm smile. You know everything you need to know to find me. I'll be waiting. Everything you need to know to find me. I'll be waiting.